He uses there a simile, a metaphor of a climber who has to retreat back to the valley from his first attempt to reach a mountain peak. He uses this metaphor in order to describe what a retreat means in a revolutionary process. After enumerating all the achievements and failures of the first 5 years of Soviet power, Lenin concludes, quote, "Communists who have no illusions, who do not give way to despondency, and who preserve their strength and flexibility to begin from the beginning over and over again in approaching an extremely difficult task, are not doomed, and in all probability will not perish," end of quote. This conclusion, to begin from the beginning over and over again, makes it clear that Lenin is not talking only about slowing down the progress, fortifying what was already achieved, and so on, but precisely on descending back to the starting point. One should begin from the beginning. A revolutionary process is not a gradual process, but a kind of repetitive movement of you try, you fail, you try from the 0 point again, and so on and so on. And I think here is where we are today, after the disaster of 1989, the definitive end of the epoch which began with the October Revolution. One should therefore, here may be the point of the first disagreement, one should therefore, I claim, reject the continuity with what left meant in the last 2 centuries, at least in the West. Although, of course, we should keep in our memory sublime moments like the Jacobin climax of the French Revolution, the October Revolution, and so on and so on. This story is over. We should begin from the 0 point. Let's admit it. It was already emphasized this morning in the first intervention how it seems as if capitalism triumphed. The most reliable sign of capitalism's ideological triumph is, at least in the West, in the last decades, the virtual disappearance of the very term capitalism. Now you will say, but what about anti-globalization movement? I think that a close look quickly shows how anti-globalization movement, and this is for me its limitation, succumbs to the temptation to transform a critique of capitalism itself, centered on economic mechanisms, forms of work organization, profit extraction, and so on, into a critique of imperialism. Now let me avoid a misunderstanding, my God. I wrote 2 books dedicated to the critique of the role of United States today, and so on and so on. So the last thing you can accuse me is to support in any way United States. I'm just saying that if you read closely how the term anti-imperialist struggle is used, I see a danger there. The danger is that by, how should I put it, personalizing the enemy, by talking instead of capitalism about American imperialism, you sustain a very dangerous dream. The dream of, again, you see, I'm just enumerating misunderstandings, and then I humbly wait for you to counterattack. A dream which I considered a very dangerous, potentially reactionary dream, a dream of alternate modernity. A dream that, you know, the West, at least in Western Europe, did it in one way, in their own way, this liberal, exploitative, individualist capitalism. We can do it in a different way. We can have modernization and so on without all that. I think this is a dangerous trap. If you think this, you, as they say in English, which is not my mother tongue, you want to have a cake and eat it. You want capitalist modernity without paying the price for it, with all the antagonisms and so on and so on. The dream is that the horrors, struggles, wars generated by capitalism are just something basically proper to West European capitalism, and that we can, or you or whoever, can do it in a different way. Why am I skeptical about this? Because, you know, in Europe, throughout the at least first half of the 20th century, we had one big movement of alternate modernity. It is called fascism. Fascism is precisely a project of alternate modernity, of we can have technology, industry, everything, but, as they put it, without the Jewish corruption, class struggle, we can maintain harmonious society, and so on and so on. So we should be very clear here. Modernization means today capitalist modernization. And I'm not saying, I'm not a kind of a crazy radical, pseudo-radical leftist who thinks reject capitalism, whatever. I am aware of the constellation in which we are. All I'm saying is we should be aware that the antagonism, the contradiction, to use the old Marxist term, is not in some wrong application or local, culturally conditioned version of capitalism. It is in capitalism as such. So that all different versions of capitalism, I agree, there is not only Western capitalism, there is what we poetically call capitalism with Asian values, which means less poetically authoritarian capitalism, no? And there is Latin American populist capitalism, and so on and so on. We should be aware that with just changing the forum from the West, you don't get rid of capitalist antagonisms as such. So again, all this talk, you know, this is the danger I see in the talk of anti-imperialist struggle. Of course you should fight it, but don't personalize enemy too much. The problem is not there. Okay, to provoke you even further. When we talked, as you did very nicely, about financial, international finance, it would be good, and I'm not attacking China here, but it would be good to compare the international capital, how it functions precisely in this tension between United States and China. Do you know the incredible amounts of money invested by China now in the United States? Because we know what's the problem. You who are economists know better than me. I know only the superficial things. How does the United States survive? Basically, they really treat us all as some kind of a feudal master. They need, which is masked then as a trade deficit or whatever, they need till now it's even more, minimum $1 to $2 billion per day. And they get it as investments and whatever. But they are paying a price. I read somewhere that in very global numbers, around 10% of United States, if you take all real estate, factories,